The siren cut the night in half, a jagged wail against the base housing quiet. A second earlier, I'd been staring at a folded note on my lap, its paper fiber rough against my fingertips. My mother's handwriting was spare and surgical. Pretend you're not well. Leave. Now. The porch light threw a cone of amber across the walkway as I rose from the table, the smell of baked cheese and something faintly sweet hovering in the dining room, like a smile that didn't reach the eyes. I pressed my napkin to my mouth, faking a cough. The cotton felt damp against my lip as I pushed back my chair. "Excuse me," I said. "Sudden headache." Cynthia Haskins, gold bracelets chiming, tipped the casserole spoon toward me. "Try just a bite," she said. Her perfume was sugary, almost almond. My mother didn't look up. She cut her meatloaf with a steady hand. The tiny muscle at her jaw moved once. That was enough. Orders, not explanations. I slipped the note into my dress blues pocket, rose, and walked out into the night. The screen door snapped behind me with a dry slap. On the stoop, the air was cool and metal clean. I leaned against the railing until my pulse stopped drumming in my throat, until the porch paint, gritty under my palm, anchored me back in my body. I took 10 steps down the path and turned the corner past the hedges. The siren started before I reached the street. 1, then 2, braided together. Red and blue washed over the siding as an MP cruiser screamed to a stop. I looked back, and in the framed window, chairs scraped, silhouettes surged, and a serving spoon clattered to tile. The scent of the casserole threaded the air again, sweet, wrong, and vanished under exhaust and panic. Minutes later, lockdown. The base drew a hard breath and held it. A medic sprinted past, bag bouncing, rubber soles slapping concrete. "Move!" he barked to no one and everyone. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Do not come back in. Trust me." I stayed under the porch light, a small circle of stillness, and watched the home I grew up in become a scene. It smelled like grass and brake dust. The note in my pocket warmed to my skin. People think Marines trust orders because we worship authority. It's simpler. In the field, explanations waste oxygen. You learn the tilt of a voice. You learn the micro flares in the eyes. You learn that some warnings sound like nothing at all. I closed my eyes long enough to hear our house as it used to be. The whir of the ceiling fan, my father's low laugh, my brother Jacob's spoon drumming boredom on a glass. Then reality pushed in, radio chatter, a stretcher's wheels rattling the bricks, and Major Paul Haskins' voice knifing through it all. "Cynthia! Cynthia, look at me!" 8 words was more than he managed. The rest were noise. They brought her out under an oxygen mask, bracelet stilled, eyes unfixed. The porch light made her face look like paper. A paramedic murmured to his partner, too low to hear, and I watched his nostrils flare as if he smelled the wrong sweetness too. I said nothing. Orders, not explanations. The wound is simple. I grew up in a house where silence wasn't neglect. It was discipline shaped into calm. My mother, Colonel Rebecca Lawson, ran regiments and ran a family, and the difference was mostly uniforms. When I was 8, I learned to read the micro twitch in her cheek that meant duck. When I was 10, I learned that "we will discuss later" meant no, and that no meant not ever. When I was 12, I learned that the softest orders save you fastest. Jacob never liked that. He'd call me the obedient one, the shadow, the yes ma'am kid who wouldn't color outside the lines. He meant it as an insult. I wore it like a medal I kept on the inside. Our father, Mark, played mediator with a patient smile and a hand on each shoulder. One on a live wire, one on a fuse. At dinner that night, the air was polite and wrong. You can smell a truce. Major Haskins, newly posted to logistics, told a story about rationing screws in Kandahar like he was remembering a fishing trip. Cynthia smiled too brightly, her bracelets chiming whenever the story asked for laughter. My mother nodded and poured water, the porch light already on, a habit from deployments, a beacon for anyone who might come home late and whole. "As I was saying," Major Haskins went on, "Rebecca, you did what you had to do back then. We've all made peace." His fork made a clean scrape against china. The sound skittered up my spine. My mother glanced at the casserole dish. Her pupils tightened. She slid the note. I still don't know if she truly smelled what I smelled, the almond that wasn't. She told me later that her hands shook once lifting the lid. That memory had a scent too. The cooling unit room from a base in '98 where a bottle labeled coolant had ended a marriage, a career, and nearly a life. She told me the sweetness doesn't lie. She told me she hates being right. When the sirens started, Jacob texted, "What did you do?" As if obedience were an action sharp enough to cut someone. I thumbed back, followed orders, then slid the phone away and listened to the radio's braid instructions I didn't need to understand. The note in my pocket edged into my awareness again, the crease pressing my thigh through the uniform wool. A small, rectangular heartbeat. An MP finally angled toward me. "Lieutenant Lawson?" I nodded. "Agent Travers will want your statement. Stay clear." His voice had the dry rasp of a man who lived on coffee and procedure. He glanced at the porch light. "You left before the event?" "Yes," I said. "On whose instruction?" I tapped my pocket. "Family." He didn't ask to see the note. He looked at my collar instead, at the rank. That was answer enough. Back inside, the last thing I heard before they closed the door was my mother's voice. Flat as a rifle barrel laid on a table. "Stop serving. Open windows. Gloves on." A series of instructions, stepped and clean like a path across a minefield. I could almost see her laying them down, flag by flag. Cynthia's gurney rolled, wheels rattling like a zipper. Major Haskins' mouth moved. I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need them. 8-word men don't always choose them well. The porch light hummed. The night smelled like wet rope and engine heat. I stood in my dress blues, pockets squared, a folded note warming against my leg, and understood that obedience is a kind of love that looks like leaving. NCIS headlights carved the curb, and I felt the notes crease like a blade. Agent Travers stepping out, eyes already on my pocket. Agent Nick Travers stepped into the porch light like a man who didn't believe in shadows. The radio at his shoulder hissed, clipped words chopping the air. He carried a leather notebook and the kind of gaze that sorted details the way my mother sorted probabilities. Fast, without fuss. "Lieutenant Lawson," he said. "You left before the event." His voice had sand in it. The light caught a scar under his jaw like a pale thread. I could smell coffee on his breath and the faint chemical tang from the gloves tucked into his belt. "Yes," I said. "On instruction." He glanced at my pocket. "From whom?" "Family." I tapped the crease of the note through my dress blues. The paper's edge pressed my thigh, real, rectangular, a boundary. "May I?" "Not a question." He held out a clear evidence sleeve. The plastic crackled. I drew the note and slid it in. The sleeve felt cold, a slick barrier. He read the words once, no extra passes, and nodded. "Concise." Inside the house, a window thumped open, then another. The air thinned. Tinny, the base siren flattened into distance as lockdown protocols rippled outward. Gates sealing, patrols moving, a net cast over our quiet street. Travers made space with a half step. "You'll give a statement. Any medical symptoms?" "No," I said. "I didn't eat." He studied me. Why obey without context? I almost smiled. It was an order. His mouth ticked at the corner like he knew the language. "You recognize any odor?" "Sweetness," I said. "Wrong for casserole." He flicked a glance toward the door. Antifreeze reads sweet. He closed the notebook. "We don't guess twice." The radio hissed again. He listened, then said into the mic, "Copy. 1 out of exposure. 1 symptomatic transported." Cynthia had gone silent on the stretcher except for the plastic gasp of the oxygen mask. The sound hung in my head like a ripple that wouldn't settle. From the doorway came my mother's voice, numbers in it now, distances, checklists. "Where's your CO?" Travers asked. "At home with a newborn," I said. "I'm on family weekend." The words tasted strange, soft against the metal night. He nodded toward the window where my mother's silhouette moved. "You and Colonel Lawson always operate like this." "Orders, not explanations," I said. "We read the in-between." He made a quiet sound that almost reached a smile. That skill saves paperwork. He angled his head. Saves lives first. My phone pinged. Jacob. They're asking you questions. You're not NCIS. I typed, I'm witness. Calm down. He fired back. Mom's controlling another room. I pocketed the phone and let the plastic sleeves crinkle settle my hands. The wound finished itself without theatrics. When I was 15, my mother taught me to clear a room. Light switch first, then corners, then center. She taught me to introduce silence before speech so people hear you instead of their own noise. That was the shape of our love. A sequence, a safety, a set of habits that made fear useful. Her first deployment back, she'd brought me a ribbon-threaded medal she never wore. Keep it, she'd said, placing it in my palm. The medal had felt cool, heavier than I expected. Some honors sit better in a drawer. I kept it under socks like a secret star. Now the bass PA system cracked alive, a male voice steady and bored around the edges. Shelter in place. This is a training-adjacent event. Medical support deployed. The fluorescent spill from our kitchen washed the yard a flat hospital white. Travers checked his watch. Your mother texted you not to re-enter. That message exists. Yes. We'll preserve that too, he paused. Did you notice serving order? Cynthia served her dish herself, I said. Major Haskins encouraged seconds. He scratched a line. Did he eat? 2 bites, I said. I watched his fork. He chews like counting. Travers looked up. Useful observation. I shrugged. Logistics officers count. He tucked the sleeve into his case. The clasp clicked shut, crisp as a salute. We'll take statements separately. Of course. He turned to go, then turned back. Lieutenant, what did you feel before the note? Nothing dramatic, I said. Just a quiet wrongness. Smell. Tension. Your mother's jaw, he said. I blinked. You noticed. I notice everything that trembles before it breaks. He pivoted, and the radio hissed, and he vanished into the house's bright rectangle. The mini-turn came fast. A second MP jogged up the walk holding a sealed plastic tub. The latch clacked like teeth. Agent wanted the leftovers secured on Dory, he said. We'll run the kitchen. He sniffed, frowned. Sweet. Weird. The kitchen exhaled a new smell. Bleach. Air shifted as windows took the night, cooler now with a thread of cut grass. Through the open door, I saw my father, Mark, moving like a man told to do anything useful. Taking plates to the sink, stacking without noise, shoulders squared to the task of being present. He caught my eye. His face folded, then smoothed. He raised 2 fingers. Stay. I held still. A post in the ground. Jacob appeared behind him, eyebrows up, phone out. He mouthed, What happened? His stare had heat in it. I held up a palm. Later. He rolled his eyes and vanished. He did that when the room didn't swivel toward him. He'd forgive himself for it tomorrow and me the next day. Travers returned with gloves now on, the latex snapping soft. Walk me through 5 minutes before you left, he said. Clockwork, not color. Major Haskins told a story about ration screws, I said. Cynthia laughed on cue. Mom poured water. I smelled sugar. The porch light was on. The bulb hummed faintly. I could hear it even from the yard. Anyone toast? Major lifted his glass. I stood to leave. Cynthia's line, he said. Try just a bite. I kept it short, the way he liked it. Cross traffic in the radio again, and then he stilled. Copy. He looked at me. We've got another dish untouched. Neutralizer compound in the trash. His face didn't move. Who bust plates? Jacob and Dad, I said. Routine. He nodded once. We'll separate them for statements. He flicked a look to the metal pinned to my memory, then back to the present. You'll appreciate sequence. I always do. He stepped aside as the medic returned, rubbing his forearm where a strap had bit. Transport stable, the medic said. Vitals responding. Hospital receiving? Travers asked. Ward 3, the medic said. Psych consult on call. The word psych hung. It folded the room smaller. I exhaled. The porch rail under my hand felt rough, a flake of paint catching my skin. My mother texted, "Stay with the agent. Answer only what you saw." I typed, "Copy." The screen's cool light glazed my thumb. The second mini-turn arrived in a whisper. Travers turned a page and held up the casserole spoon in a separate bag, metal glinting under the porch light. "We pulled a partial," he said quietly, "like a promise half kept." "From who?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not yet." My stomach did a slow, hollow turn. I thought of the note in my mother's cheek muscle and the way she cut meatloaf like crossing a street under fire. "You know the Haskins well," Travers said. "New posting," I said. "Old history." "What history?" "Court-martial era." I kept it flat. My mother's career had weight. He closed the notebook as if closing a door. "We keep that for later." The word later clicked into place like a safety. Inside, my mother spoke to someone I couldn't see. "Open that window wider. Good. Bag the foil." Her voice was even. Her hands, I knew without seeing, were steady, only the smallest tremor trapped in the knuckle where grief hides. The house lights cooled as bulbs dimmed to save heat. The yard leaned into the night again. The base siren had gone thin and far. In my pocket, there was no note anymore, only the memory of an edge and the afterimage of 7 words that had split a dinner and stitched a life. Travers looked at me one last time as if verifying a coordinate. "You did right leaving." It didn't feel brave, and I said, "Brave isn't loud," he said. "It's accurate." The porch bulb flickered once, then steadied. In the distance, a helicopter's thrum muscled the air. I smelled jet fuel in the breeze, a metallic promise of motion. "Lieutenant Lawson," Travers said, gentler now. "We'll brief at NCIS in the morning." "Understood." He tucked the spoon bag away. The plastic rasped. "You should sleep." I looked at the window where my mother's shadow moved. "I'll stay until she sits." He nodded like he knew that choreography. "Then we all will." My phone lit with a new text from an unknown number. 4 words that hauled the past to the porch. "You ruined our life." The text glared up at me like a bruise. "You ruined our life." No name, no punctuation. The screen's cold light iced my palm. Somewhere over the housing blocks, a helicopter's blades punched the night into neat slices. The thrum pressed against my ribs. Travers caught the flicker on my face. "Problem." "Unknown number," I said. 4 words. He angled his notebook. "Read them." I did. He didn't blink. "Don't reply," he said. "Forward to me." "Preserve." I forwarded the message. The phone felt heavy now, a small metal confession. In the doorway, the bleach smell thickened as my mother wiped the counter with the calm of someone cleaning a weapon. Slow, exact. Nothing theatrical. Jacob shouldered through, hoodie half-zipped, breath hot with adrenaline. "This is insane," he said. "We were having dinner." Cynthia collapsed, I said. "Lockdown isn't theater." He glared past me to the cruiser lights jittering across the siding. "Mom always does this. Controls the room, controls the story." "She saved the room. Oh," I said. He laughed once, sharp. "At what cost, Em?" "Alive is cheaper than dead," I said. The line sounded cold in the air. I didn't take it back. Travers lifted a palm, gentle but immovable. "We need statements. Separate." His gloves creaked softly as he turned toward Jacob. "You first." Jacob bristled. "I'm not." 8 minutes, Travers said. "Then you eat something and sleep." The certainty in Travers's tone nudged Jacob, where pleading never could. My brother exhaled through his nose, jerked a nod, and stomped inside. The floorboards complained under his shoes. I smelled the lemon of the wipes now, an overlay on the sweet echo of the casserole that still poisoned memory if not air. My father joined me at the threshold, voice low. "You okay?" "I'm vertical," I said. He squeezed my shoulder, calluses catching in my uniform weave. "Your mother will need you in the morning." "I know." We stood in the porch light, its hum faint as a fly trapped in the bulb. The yard looked washed, Edges too clear, colors bleached by shock. Another text chimed. Same number. She ended his future. It wasn't a flood. It was a drip, timed to erode. The words landed like pebbles in a calm, each ring widening the past. I handed the phone to Travers. He bagged it with the care you give a fragment of black box recorder. Good, he said. Chain is clean. What's the plan? I asked. We build sequence, he said. We close doors. He pointed with his chin to the kitchen. We test the dish. We track a neutralizer. We audit base access. We read the old case. Court-martial, I said. The word had dust on it. We'll dust it off, he said. He looked toward my mother. Her hands were bare now, skin washed the color of paper. She dried the counter with a fresh towel, edges aligned. That was her way of breathing. Make a line, straighten it, live inside it. Colonel Lawson, Travers called into the kitchen, voice respectful. We'll take your statement last. Understood, she said. No tremor, no grandeur. He turned back to me. You should sleep. After I write, I said. He watched me for a beat like a man gauging a bridge's load limit. You journal. Always, I said. It keeps memory honest. He nodded. Good, don't speculate. Stacks of facts, smell, sound, sequence, timestamps. I nodded. The helicopter's thrum leaned away, the air easing. From the hospital direction, an ambulance siren faded to a thread, then nothing. Minnie turned. Travers's partner, a woman in a tidy bun and steel posture, appeared with a clear tub in both hands. Dre, Travers said. She tilted the tub so we could see the foil-wrapped rectangles nested inside like bricks. Secondary dish untouched, she said, voice clipped. We found the box from a pool supply closet. Neutralizer compound. Partial scoop missing. Access card? Travers asked. Logged to family quarters, Dre said. Her eyes clicked to me and away, already sorting. We'll pull pin logs. Major Haskins' quarters, Travers said. Shared, Dre said. Wife's card registered Wednesday. The porch light buzzed louder, or maybe the house had gone quieter. I felt the grain of the railing under my fingers, a roughness I could pick at and ruin, or leave and learn from. Plan, I said to myself, testing the word. Not panic, not blame. Plan. I stepped onto the porch and took a breath that tasted like old wood and night. I'll write now, I told my father. He nodded. Use the den, he said. Lamp's good. Inside, the air cooled against my cheeks. The lemon wiped the last of the almond from my nose. In the den, I pulled the journal from the shelf, a black notebook with a ribbon like a discreet salute. When I opened it, the pages crackled, dry and ready. I wrote the date, the time, the words from the note, the smell. I wrote the scrape of fork on china, the chime of bracelets, the hum of the porch light. I drew a quick map of the table. Who sat where, who reached for what, the path of the spoon. I don't know how long I wrote. 10 minutes, 30. The pen's scratch made its own weather. Each sentence was a plank, each plank a floor. The house felt steadier under me with each line I nailed down. I paused, rubbed my thumb over the ribbon. The medal lived in the same drawer under the socks. On impulse, I opened it and took the medal out. It lay in my palm, cool and clean. I set it on the desk beside the journal. 2 weights of the same truth. My mother stood in the doorway, shoulders squared but eyes soft. The bleach smell followed her, thin now, almost gone. You're writing, she said. It's how I carry it, I said. She stepped in, touched the medal with one finger. Some honors sit better in a drawer, she said. Not tonight, I said. Her mouth tilted, half grief, half pride. Not tonight, she agreed. Who texted me? I asked. Someone who thinks pain is a ledger, she said. You smelled it? I said. Yes, she said. Years ago first. Tonight again. Do you hate being right? I asked. Tonight, and she said. I hate that the world required it. We stood in the den's lamplight. It was gentle, yellow, like the porch when I was 10 and afraid of thunder. The bass siren was a memory now. The quiet had muscle again. My phone pinged from the evidence tub near the doorway. Dre's voice drifted in. We'll run the number. Travers's, calm. We'll brief at Aero 900. Sleep, my mother said softly. I will. I lied with practice. Marines learn to sleep inside noise. I was awake inside quiet. Mini turn. The base PA crackled again, a different timbre. Command voice. All officers, logistics and security report to Auditorium B at 0900 for safety briefing. Family quarters remain secured. The word auditorium pulled the future into focus. Public. Bright light. Chairs. The weight of many eyes. The story would walk into air and stand there. The twist belonged there too, clean and contained. My mother exhaled like a swimmer surfacing. They'll want me on stage. You'll be measured, I said. I'll be exact, she said. Need me there, I asked. She met my eyes, unblinking. I need you calm. I can do calm, I said. She touched the journal. Then do it here first. After she left, I set the medal atop the journal like a paperweight on a beating heart. I wrote one more line. Brave isn't loud, it's accurate. And closed the book. The lamp clicked off. The den slid into blue dark, the edges kind. In the hallway, I passed Jacob's door ajar, heard the soft shudder of his breath. Sleep had finally ambushed him. My father lay on the couch, one arm thrown over his eyes, shoes off like he'd surrendered to the ordinary. I returned to the porch. The bulb hummed. The night smelled like cut grass and cooling engines. Travers waited by the steps, hands in pockets now, gloves off, knuckles scuffed pale. You good? He asked. I wrote, I said. That's good, he said. Tomorrow we make it public. Auditorium B, I said. He nodded. One scandal, one truth. One clean room. I glanced at the kitchen window where my mother's silhouette lowered the blind. We'll be ready. He started down the steps, then paused. Bring the notes copy, he said. And if it helps, bring something that anchors you. The medal, I said. He didn't ask which one. Anchor, he repeated like a salute. At 0547, my phone, now logged and returned, buzzed one last time. Tomorrow they'll hear what you did. At 600, the bass speakers coughed, then rolled out reveille. The brass notes bounced down the street, crisp as snapped flags. Cold air bit my cheeks when I stepped outside. It smelled like wet earth and diesel. The porch light clicked off on a timer, leaving the siding a flat gray. Night was over. So was ambiguity. I ran. Boots thudded a rhythm along the perimeter path, heel to toe, breath burning clean lines through my lungs. The chain link fence hummed faintly where wind laid a hand. Every 50 yards, a gate lock cracked in the breeze, a dry rattle that sounded like discipline keeping time. Past the gym, the air changed. Rubber floors, old sweat, eucalyptus from a trainer's kit. I kept running until my thoughts stopped arguing and fell into formation. Back at the house, I showered hot and fast. Steam fogged the mirror. My dress blues lay on the bed like a decision. I slid the folded copy of the note into the inner pocket, then the metal beneath the lining. A flat, cool weight against my ribs. Anchor, Travers had said. The metal warmed to my skin as if remembering a body it used to live on. The journal waited on the desk. I opened it, added times, sirens, transport, auditorium call. My pen scratched a clean path. The sound steadied me. I tucked the journal into a leather folio, the ribbon peaking like a discreet salute. The kitchen held the aftersmell of bleach and coffee. My father poured 2 mugs without words. Steam rose in small banners. He set one by my hand, the ceramic warm. Jacob shuffled in, hair flat on one side, eyes rimmed red. He reached for the bread, then stopped, fingers hovering like he'd touched an invisible line. He grabbed an apple instead and bit down, loud and clean. We ate in a silence built to last. My mother entered in civilian black, collar neat, hands already still. She checked the clock. She checked me. She lifted a brown envelope thick with photocopies. Evidence under paper gravity. She nodded once. Go. Our car's engine turned over with a throaty cough. The base roads were blue and empty. Dew pooled in shallow mirrors along the curb. An MP checkpoint rose from the morning haze. Radios chattered. We rolled forward. They waved us through on a glance at her ID. Antenna whips ticked against air like insect legs. NCIS sat low and ugly, a square of brick that had decided truths were more important than windows. The lobby smelled like copier ozone and bad coffee. Fluorescence laid everything out in blunt honesty. Travers was already in motion, sleeves rolled, tie clipped short, a stack of forms moving under his hands like cards in a rigged game. He pointed us through without looking up. I peeled off into interview 2. The room was small and hard breathing, acoustic tile ceiling, one camera, a table with a scar at its edge. Dre slid me a release, a pen, a recorder. Plastic clicked, the red light pulsed. I laid the journal on the table. The cover thumped softly, the recorder caught it. Statement by Lieutenant Emily Lawson, Dre said for the mic. Time mark 0736. I spoke in sequence. Smell, light, sound, serving order, the bracelet chime, the scrape of fork, the hum of the porch bulb. I did not shape conclusions. I laid planks. Dre's pen moved like a metronome. When I finished, I slid the copy of the note across. The sleeve whispered against the table. She sealed it. Chain, unbroken. Next, the phone. She scanned the unknown number, pinned it to a printout. We're triangulating towers and card access, she said. 8 words exactly, precise as a drill. On the wall, a clock ticked loud enough to count my breath. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old carpet. My palms tracked the table's lacquer, slippery in one direction, drag in the other, a useful map for calming hands. Travers opened the door without knocking, a file between 2 fingers. Hospital update, he said. Stable. Interview pending. He lifted a brow at me. Auditorium at 0900. I stood. The chair legs squealed against linoleum. The sound stabbed the room and died. I picked up the folio and the weight of the metal moved with me, steady, cooperative. Corridor. Vending machine hum. A tech hurried by carrying a cooler that sweated. He vanished into the lab. The door swung shut with a soft hydraulic sigh. Through the glass, I caught a flash. A pipette, a tray, the silver belly of the casserole spoon under a light that turned everything surgical. We stepped into evidence. Cold air pressed my arms. Stainless tables shone with that wet light sheen only labs have. The air smelled like ethanol and latex. A gray-haired chemist didn't look up when he spoke. Ethylene glycol marker at threshold, he said. Neutralizer compound present in separate container. His voice was a fan blade cutting, reliable. Travers didn't smile. Control run? Running, the chemist said. I watched the tray as if it were a patient trying to breathe. The spoons bag fogged at one corner, then cleared. The hum of the fume hood held the room together. Fact by fact, the world reassembled itself. In a side office, Dre spread a series of photos. The casserole dish under overhead light. Foil with fingerprints powdered like constellation dust. The pool closet container with its mouth-stained faint cyan. A calendar printout. Base access logs. A week's worth of names in a grid. Wednesday. A card ping from Haskins Cuters at 2314. Cynthia's ID number next to it. An unblinking fact. Travers traced the line with one finger like a mapmaker dragging a river. He wrote a time. He circled a name. He closed the folder. We moved again. Hall, coffee room. The air was burnt and hopeful. I took a paper cup, filled it black. Heat stung my fingers through the thin wall. I sipped and let the bitterness reset my mouth. When I looked up, my mother stood in the doorway across the hall with Agent Torres from JAG. Fresh haircut, immaculate file. They exchanged 2 words, consent and record, and moved together toward interview 1. No theater, just sequence. Auditorium B had been dressed into order. Folding chairs in clean rows, a podium under a wash of cool stage lights, projectors humming at the ceiling, their fans whispering like contained weather. The room smelled like dust warming on filaments and 100 old speeches. I stepped up to the back row and tested a seat. The hinge creaked, then settled. I walked to the aisle, counted steps to the stage. Visual range, egress points. The metal warmed me a degree. A young specialist taped hazard placards on the sidewall, bright yellow triangles shouting about chemical safety. He fumbled the tape. I steadied the corner with a flat palm. Adhesive rasped under my fingers. "Thanks, ma'am," he said. "Carry on," I said. The words felt like a bridge laid under his feet. On stage, Travers and Dre clicked through slides. Title cards, incident timeline, evidence chain, chemical findings. They moved in that left-right pattern of people who have rehearsed truth into muscle. An NCIS tech tested a handheld mic. The squeal lanced the room. He winced, dialed it down, tapped. The thump was satisfying. I ran the path from seat to podium and back again in my head. A silent drill. My hands rehearsed the fold of the note sleeve. Lift, hold, show, return. Anchor to breath, breath to voice, voice to line. I slipped backstage, found the green room. A square with stale air and a couch that had seen briefings and breakdowns. The bulb over the mirror buzzed and steadied. I opened the folio, placed the journal on the table, then set the metal on top. The metal clicked, a small, exact sound. I pressed 2 fingers to it. Cold, then warm. Calm, then resolve. I practiced the line the way you oil a hinge. Brave isn't loud, it's accurate. Then movement. Radios lifted in a wave outside. Doors thumped. The sound of many feet became a low, rolling weather. Officers filed in, uniforms whispering. I stepped to the wing and took a thin slice of view. Rows filling, heads turning, everyone's hands finding programs and pens. A color guard filed to the side aisle by habit, even without a flag detail. Posture is its own country. My phone buzzed. A permitted device now, under NCIS custody and watch. A single notification slid into the lock screen from the unknown number. "They broke him. You'll answer." I lifted it to Travers. He took a photo, pocketed the threat, handed me back the device like you return a blade to someone who knows how to carry it. Time to test my voice. I stepped into the empty corridor and counted 10 breaths. The hallway smelled like floor polish and paper. My pulse thudded in my ears, then eased. On the wall, a corkboard displayed safety posters that had tried their best for a decade. One shield icon bordered in blue reminded me what all this was for. Not victory, not vengeance. Prevention. I returned to the wing. The house lights settled to a tidy dim. A hush walked the rows in a quick, smooth wave. Travers looked at me, then at the folio in my hand. He lifted his chin a millimeter. The signal read, "Now." I climbed the steps, the rubber treads grippy under heel, the podium's wood cool under my palm. The stage lights cut across my eyes in a clean blade. Heat found my cheeks. From somewhere behind the curtain, the air conditioner clicked on. A low hum that felt like a held breath. Across an ocean of faces, I spotted my father in the third row, his hands folded, his jaw set. Beside him, Jacob sat too straight, eyes bright, mouth a flat line, ready to either bolt or stand. My mother was a dark silhouette at the aisle, composed, a fixed star. I lifted the sleeve with the note, the plastic catching light like a sliver of water held in air. The room leaned forward. The metal pressed against my chest, small and certain. When the rear doors opened and the guards escorted Cynthia's chair to the side aisle, every scrape of wheel on tile sounded like a verdict waiting to be spoken. The room inhaled when Cynthia's chair cleared the threshold. Wheels whispered over tile. A brake clicked once. Fluorescents along the walls kept their steady hum, but the stage lights washed the center aisle in a hard, surgical brightness. I felt the podium's varnish under my palm, cool, glass slick, anchoring my stance. Travers stepped to the lectern first. Paper slid. The mic caught a low breath, then steadied. He didn't open with a speech. He opened with sequence. Slides ticked forward. Timestamp. Call received. Lockdown initiated. EMS arrival. Each line an edge, each edge a corridor. The projector's fan exhaled warm air across my sleeve. From the front row, a legal pad flipped a page with a dry whisper like leaves. Evidence next. Dre lifted the bagged spoon. Light skated along the metal curve. In the front bank of chairs, a logistics captain leaned in until his brass caught the beam. The room smelled faintly of hot dust and coffee lids. I kept my breath even and stayed in the groove of the stage tape. One heel behind the other. the metal a measured weight against my ribs. Cynthia sat angled, hands folded. A nurse clipped a pulse ox to her finger. The red diode pulsed faintly, stubborn as a heartbeat after a sprint. Cynthia's eyes traced the spoon, then the slide, then my face. No words. The kind of silence that builds a scaffold. The chemical chart appeared, peaks nested against a baseline. The gray-haired chemist stepped up from the wing, pushed his glasses up with one knuckle, and pointed. Ethylene glycol indicators present at low dose, he said for the recorders, voice flat as a ruler. He tapped a second trace. Neutralizer compound, separate source. No drama, just topography. I watched the rows. Shoulders set, pens poised. One pair of hands tightened, then untwisted. The air conditioner kicked on, cool breath sliding along my ankles. The journal in my folio edged against my forearm. I repositioned it, ready for the moment my part would matter. Travers ran the footage next. Security cam from the base commissary. The projector washed the screen with early evening blues, fluorescent aisles, shelves in rigid parade, a ring of checkout light. Cynthia entered frame, sweatshirt hood down, hair tucked. She lifted a basket, scanned the shelves, placed items with calm precision. The room held steady. No overt reaction. Discipline wears a straight face. Then the pool supply closet stills. A metal door, a keypad, a small camera with a fisheye warp. The screen showed a figure in profile. The timestamp blinked. A card tap. The door opened to darkness. The image froze on the badge label the system overlaid. Haskins, C. The projection washed the auditorium in a pale glow. Air moved in a long, collective exhale. My mother didn't move. She stood in the aisle's shadow like a keel. I read the muscle at her jaw. Quiet, contained. My father's hands interlaced. Jacob stared at the screen like trying to unremember it. Chain of custody marched across the next slide. Foil bag, gloves, entry log. Each bag lifted and shown, each tag read aloud, no gap. Travers held the sleeve with my mother's note midway in the sequence. A single rectangle among rectangles. Light caught the crease. I felt the ghost of paper along my thigh. The copy in my pocket held its line like a promise. My turn. I stepped to the second mic and set the folio down with a flat, deliberate sound. The journal lay open to the map I had sketched. Table chart, arrows, seat order. I did not preach. I pointed. Sequence of service, right? I said, voice low, even. Casserole placed here. Host table, water poured. Spoon contact at 07. I traced the line. The laser pointer quivered once in my hand, then steadied. The pointer's dot burned a small red star on the laminated diagram. The auditorium smelled like warmed paper and the cotton of uniforms that had seen long mornings. I lifted the sleeve with the note, held it to the light. The plastic wrinkled. The 7 words sat plain on the page, stark as stenciling. The room didn't stir. Sometimes stillness is the loudest reaction. This warning removed me from exposure, I said. It focused observation. It preserved sequence. No more. I slid the sleeve back into the folio, one clean motion, and returned to the tape on the stage. Travers took the lectern. The projector shifted scenes again. Hospital intake stills. Oxygen mask, bracelets, vitals monitor puckering green. A nurse's hand anchored Cynthia's wrist while a doctor angled the mask. Tiny, competent choreography. The siren in my memory thinned to a thread. The HVAC answered with a low, even hush. Cynthia's chair creaked. She shifted. Her eyes moved to the slide where a recipe card appeared under bright light, its edges flecked with something fine and blue. The handwriting was neat, tilted. Almond crust, 1 TSP extract. The lab photo marked the residue line. No almond extract detected. The understated violence of that negative space, the thing that should be there and wasn't, rifled through the room. Cynthia's fingers twitched on the chair arm. She glanced at the aisle where the guard stood with a hand on the handle, not tight, just constant. Her pulse ox red dot blinked, blinked, blinked. Travers didn't pivot. He built. Base access logs hit the screen again, Wednesday night. 2314, card ping. Another log, kitchen trash at 2102. Neutralizer box discarded. The timeline stitched. You could see the seam like a suture line beneath skin. A low thud from the stage left door. A case set down. Dre crossed to a second projector, flicked it on. The twin beam cast a second version of the room on the wall, slightly offset, like a memory walking alongside the present. She overlaid a diagram of the Haskins quarters, kitchen, hall, closet, tape marks, the path from door to bin. No commentary, just distance and angles. The weight under my blouse warmed. I placed 2 fingertips to it through the fabric, felt the metal's solid circle, then let my hand fall. Calm, then resolve. A rustle in row 4, Major Haskins. He sat alone, cap folded in his lap. Eyes sunk with the look of a man counting costs. He stayed very still as his wife's badge flashed on screen, and her name cut a high path through the air. The swallowing sound he didn't make was louder than a shout. A brief pause, not dramatic, just space for oxygen. Then Travers slid a folder to the edge of the lectern and opened it half an inch. An old court-martial header peeking out like a scar. He didn't turn the page, not yet. The twist belonged to the precise center of the blast area, and we weren't there. Instead, he advanced to a final pre-climax slide. Risk. Quiet failures of politinesse. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Somewhere a pen cap clicked. He let the words sit like a claymore, wires tucked, direction controlled. I scanned the aisle. A junior officer started to stand, then thought better. Jacob's heel bounced once. He stilled it, pressed his foot flat. My mother's chin lowered a degree. The gesture weighted the air. 2 medics entered side, a rolling IV pole whispering. They checked Cynthia's line, tightened tape with a soft rip, adjusted a clamp. Professional, impersonal tenderness. The room watched without moving. The projector fan ramped, a small storm inside a box. Travers nodded to Dre. She dimmed the house 2 notches. The podium light sharpened, made edges crisp. The second projector went dark. All eyes swung to one screen, one lane. Behind me, the green room door eased inward on its hinge. A staffer slid a single sheet onto the spare table near my elbow. Phone record summary, unknown number, matched to a device recovered from the Haskins garage. The ink looked wet. My throat tasted like pennies for a beat. I passed the sheet to Dre without flourish. She slotted it into the deck like a round into a magazine and kept her hand steady. A page turned. Travers's thumb pressed the court-martial folder flat. The paper rasped like sand on wood. Stage right, a camera's red light winked alive, capturing the angle where my mother stood in profile, the note's shadow in her hand, silhouette. A low vibration rolled through the floorboards, the kind of tremor a helicopter leaves in a building hours after it's gone. Or maybe it was only the audience's patience reaching tensile limit. I planted both feet, felt rubber tread, squared my shoulders, and let the metal's circle remind me how to be round steel in a straight world. The last preface slide appeared. Public safety briefing. Prior conduct context. Authorized. The words landed with weight but not noise. Travers's jaw set. Dre's finger hovered over the next arrow. The room drew a single quiet breath and held it as the first page of the old case glowed to life, the header stark, the name line blank for one more heartbeat before the cursor advanced and filled in the letters that had been orbiting all morning. The cursor blinked twice, then the name hardened on the screen in cold navy font. Haskins, Eric P., CM 97041, false logs, dereliction. Paper rustled in the room like dry grass before a burn. The projector's fan exhaled. The air conditioning answered with a low, patient breath. Slides unfolded in a measured march. A fuel allocation sheet, numbers shaved and retyped. A maintenance dispatch delayed 48 hours. A photo of a rusted pump with a chalk X across its housing. The caption ran thin and bloodless. Flight scrubbed, engine seizure averted, reprimands issued. No gore, just the quiet physics of negligence. A second page. Convening authority. COL Rebecca Lawson. Findings affirmed. Reduction in rank, separation recommended. The ink sat there like a verdict that refused to fade. Major Haskins in row 4 didn't shift. His cap stayed cupped like a basin for rain that never falls. A vein at his temple ticked twice, then went still. Cynthia's pulse ox LED beat a steady red pulse against the auditorium's pale wash. Dre placed a transparency on the light box beside the lectern. It glowed with phone logs. The unknown number mapped to a prepaid handset purchased cash 48 hours prior at a highway gas mart. 2 pings at 2102 near base housing. 1 at 547, tower adjacent to Haskins' garage. The inked circles overlapped like target rings. Travers slid the next sheet into the projector path, a photocopy of an invitation handwritten by Cynthia. Friday, come break bread, let's heal old history. The loops in the script were neat, almost dutiful. A timestamp in the corner read, Monday, 1914. The edges of the card caught the light and glimmered like a lake with a wind on it. No one gasped. Marines don't gasp in rows. They breathed and held still, the sound of that discipline, a low, even surf in the rafters. I felt the metal's cold resolve through my blouse, a small, round command. My fingers rested on the folio spine. The leather warmed, then steadied. The journal's weight grounded my forearm. Anchor points, sequence, sight picture. A lab tech in a powder blue coat crossed the aisle with a quart-sized evidence bag held high. An orange biohazard sticker glaring like a tiny sun. The pool neutralizer tub sat inside, rim-dusted cyan. The tech's steps thudded soft on the risers. The bag's plastic crinkled, crisp as a salute. On the screen, a timeline bar filled, tick marks stacking. Wednesday, 23-14, card access, Haskins C. pool closet. Friday, 1852, grocery, almonds, shelf pass, no purchase. Friday, 1909, casserole assembled. Friday, 2003, dinner served. 2007, serving spoon contact. 2010, Lawson note. 20.14, EMS dispatch. The line glowed an indifferent blue. Every tick fell into place like a tooth in a gear. Travers didn't look up. He pointed once, twice, not to accuse, but to a line. He was building a box. Cynthia sat in the center and watched the lid come down. The court-martial packet turned a final page. A memo from a decade ago. Type soft at the edges, subject, command climate considerations. A signature at the bottom, R. Lawson, Cole, USMC. The language was dull with care. Discipline is restorative when truth is audible and consistent. My mother's shoulders didn't lift, didn't sink. She breathed in a cadence I knew from years of long nights and quick orders. The porch light memory washed through me and away. The auditorium lights hummed. Then motion. Cynthia's left hand slid from her lap. 2 fingers walked along the chair's armrest like scouts in a strange city. The IV line tugged. The nurse relieved the tension with a practiced half-turn of the tape, plastic whispering on flesh. Cynthia's chin tilted. Her eyes tracked to the photo of the invitation, then to the pool closet log, then to the court-martial header with her husband's initials. A root drew itself across her face. This to that to this. She pushed once on the armrest. The chair rocked. The guard's hand closed. Not rough, just enough to translate physics back into protocol. The wheels squeaked, then stilled. Cynthia's breath fogged the inside of her mask. The clear plastic blinked with each exhale. Travers raised a document envelope without comment. Dre slid it with a practiced, unhurried knife. Out slid a single sheet. Hospital talk screen. Subject C. Haskins. EG trace minimal. Urinary metabolites present. A highlighted line at the bottom. Ingested dose, subtoxic, suggests controlled self-exposure. The yellow stripe on the page shone under the light like a warning lane on a flight deck. Chairs clicked backward a half-inch as bodies settled into the fact. You could feel the collective arithmetic. She dosed the dish and herself, just enough to perform harm credibly, not enough to drown in her own tide. No rhetorical flourish. The room didn't need it. Air moved along the ceiling in a small, circular draft. The projector hummed. On the side table, a digital recorder's red eye pulsed. A cable hummed faintly, a mosquito of electricity. The grand piano silence in the auditorium deepened until you could hear a pen tip drop. Somewhere in the back row, a boot creaked like an old hinge. Travers set the talk sheet down and finally lifted his eyes to the room at large, then to Cynthia, then to my mother. His chin dipped millimeters. This is the turn. He didn't speak. He reached into his suit coat and removed the sleeve containing my mother's note. The plastic sighed. He held it up, shoulder level, so the front rows could see the block letters, the 7 words, the precise stroke of the T in trust like a bayonet line. Light caught the sleeve's top edge and laid a white thread across the wall. He walked the sleeve to the front edge of the stage, paused, and extended it to me. The move was clean, unadorned. I stepped forward, took the plastic by its corner, and felt the mild static jump to my fingertips. The note weighed an ounce in a century. I pivoted toward the room and raised it to my shoulder, an ad hoc color guard without a flag. The auditorium felt the shape of the act. Bodies shifted, heads squared. A Marine in the second row, reflexive, straightened his spine and set his boots parallel, heels kissing. Posture rippled like a wave along the line. Cynthia's breathing quickened. The nurse's hand hovered above the oximeter clip, not touching. Reading the tempo, a violinist reads a conductor's shoulder. The red LED stuttered, steadied, resumed its metronome. Dre's next slide slammed in without ornament. Intent inferred from acts. Under it, 3 bullet dashes. 1. Initiated contact under reconciliation pretext. 2. Obtained counteragent prior to event. 3. Self-dosed to simulate innocence. The dashes were so small they felt like nailheads. I didn't look at Cynthia when it landed. I kept the note at shoulder height and turned a half-inch toward my mother. The metal pressed heat into my sternum. My free hand found the folio's leather and flattened it. Movement again. Major Haskins stood, not high, not loud. His chair scraped a sober line across linoleum. He didn't look left or right. He stepped into the aisle and stopped with both hands at parade rest. No salute. No theatrics. He faced the screen where his own name burned, the initials like coals. His jaw worked once and then quit. On the far side, an MP eased the side door a crack. Cool corridor air seeped in, carrying a draft of floor wax and hallway chill. It slid along the carpet in a ghostly finger and touched my ankles. I let it pass through me. Travers returned to the lectern. He placed both palms flat on the wood, 10 fingers, 10 facts, and stood them up. He did not deliver a verdict. He laid down a last plank. Base safety is a public act. Privacy ends where harm begins. 1 sentence. 8 beats. It landed and stayed. Cynthia's hand, still on the armrest, tightened. The skin across her knuckles whitened and held. Her eyes flicked to me, then to my mother, then down to the envelope that had fed the projector. She rolled her shoulders forward as if drawing in a winter coat she no longer owned. The nurse depressed the brake with her toe. The lever clicked, a small, final sound. In the back, a door settled into its frame with a felted thud. The room sealed. The projector's bulb brightened a fraction as if taking one more breath. Across the top row, a strip of morning sun found a seam in the blackout curtains and drew a pale gold knife along the ceiling tiles. I lowered the note to chest level, squared it like a standard, and stepped 1 pace left to clear the sightline. The metal burned a crescent of heat into my chest, then eased, as if it had decided to glow instead of scorch. Cynthia shifted again. Her tongue pressed against the inside of her cheek, a small tendon roped in her neck. The oximeter blinked in perfect time with the second hand of the wall clock now, red to white to red. The house lights dimmed a notch on Dre's cue. The clock's hand kissed the 12. Travers lifted the corner of the court-martial folder and turned it one last time to reveal the closing endorsement. Separation executed. Notification delivered. The date stamped the bottom line with a thud of ink. May 21st. Cynthia's shoulders sagged a centimeter. The chair's vinyl sighed under her weight. Out in row 3, my father's fingers tightened, then unlocked. I took a long breath, felt it move the metal's edge against bone, and let it go slow. The air tasted like warm dust and coffee gone cool. I could hear each fan blade in the ceiling unit rotate, the faint, continuous sibilance of conditioned air over grill. The guard's radio burped, a clipped, coded syllable. He thumbed it to silent. The auditorium held. Cynthia lifted her eyes to mine and held them there, unblinking, as if insisting the corridor between us be walked. Her mask clouded once, twice, then cleared. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. A sound came, not yet a word, more hinge than voice, more action than speech. Cynthia's first sound scraped out like a chair, dragging, dry, resistant. The oxygen mask fogged, cleared. The nurse slid it lower to free her mouth. The plastic rasped against cheekbone. Stage lights pressed heat along my forehead. The varnish under my palm felt slick as ice. She didn't look at me. She lifted her chin toward the court-martial header glowing above us, then to my mother's silhouette in the aisle. Her throat worked once. "You ended him," she said. 4 words, flat as a stamp. The guard's hand tightened on the chair handle. Travers didn't move. Dre's finger hovered over the clicker and stayed. Cynthia shifted, slow, deliberate, as if testing the balance of a load she had carried too long. The IV line tugged. The nurse steadied it with a small, precise press of tape. Cynthia's gaze returned to the invitation photo, to the neat loop of the word heal, to the blue dust on the recipe card. A muscle leapt in her jaw and went still. She made a second sound, hoarser, like gravel in a paper cup. So I ended dinner. 4 more words. The auditorium didn't flinch. The aircon whispered across the first rows. The smell of warmed dust drifted under the lights like a ghost. Travers marked the admission with a single pencil tap to his pad. Tick, not flourish. He nodded once to the medics. The brake lever clicked. The chair steadied. Cynthia's shoulders dropped a finger's width, as if a strap had been loosened that no one else could see. I lifted the sleeve with my mother's note to eye level. The plastic's edge bit my glove. The crackle carried to the second row. 7 block letters stared back. Leave. Now. The porch light flared in my memory, and the faint almond that wasn't. Record, Dre said, to the room more than to the machine. Self-exposure minimal, intent expressed. 8 words, neutral as glass. Major Haskins remained standing in the aisle, cap in his hands like a small, obedient boat. He didn't look at his wife. He looked at the floor seam where 2 tiles met in a hairline crack that had probably been there for years, waiting for a boot heel to notice. A path opened in the front row. The base commander stepped into the light, ribbon bars neat, jaw set. He didn't take the lectern. He planted his boots, squared his shoulders toward the audience, and let the room know what posture looks like when the facts no longer wobble. No speech. He turned to my mother, met her eyes, and gave one short nod that landed like a gavel. The bulbs above us hummed. The projector's fans sighed warmer. Travers's hand hovered near the mic, then withdrew. He glanced at me with that 1/4-inch lift under his brow. Now. I stepped to the podium, set the folio down so it thumped once, and raised the sleeve higher, the crease catching light like a blade. The metal under my blouse pressed a small circle of cool into bone and then warmed as if consenting. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't thank anyone. I set my voice low so the microphones would have to come to me. The hardest warnings save what you'll never fully know. No flourish. No echo. The line went out like a calm thrown rope and held. Silence did something I had only seen in drill halls. It stood up before the bodies did. The front row rose first, heels together, spines vertical, hands flat to seams. The second row followed, then the third, the sound of chair legs pushing back a soft, escalating surf. Boots found angles, knees locked. In the side aisle, the color guard straightened as if a flag had crinkled in from the wings. I kept the note lifted. The sleeve warmed against my fingers. The plastic's edge dug a clean, reassuring line into my palm. Light washed the page until those 7 words looked carved. My mother did not blink. She rose with the room, but not because of it. Her chin a degree higher, her hands quiet at her sides. My father stood beside Jacob, shoulders squared. Jacob's breath hitched once, then steadied into the collective measure. Cynthia watched them all rise. She watched the posture ripple, the instinct take shape. Her hand tightened around the armrest until the vinyl dimpled. The nurse glanced at her monitor, then at me. I shook my head once. Hold. The red LED inched upward, blink by blink, as if it too were climbing to its feet. The base commander didn't speak. He faced the audience and brought his right hand to his brow. The salute cut cleanly through the stage light. It held for 2 beats, 3, 4. When he dropped it, the air felt rinsed. Dre sealed the talks report into an envelope with a single press of her thumb. The adhesive hissed. She slid it into the evidence box. The lid thunked shut, muffled by foam. Travers signed the log, his pen scratching a quick, satisfying line. The chemist in the wing shut down his hood. The fan spun down through a descending scale, the room's pitch lowering with it. I set the sleeve on the lectern like a standard returned to its bracket. The journal pressed against my forearm with a soft grit of paper edges, waiting for ink. The smell of coffee drifted in faintly from the corridor, bitter and grounding under the ozone tang. The commander stepped back, the MPs stepped forward. Not a rush, an exact measured approach. One moved to the chair, kneeling so his face stayed level with Cynthia's. He spoke too low for the mics. The other unsnapped a cuff case, metal-kissed leather with a restrained chime. A plastic shield was unfolded and set aside, not needed after all. Cynthia did not fight. She extended her wrists as if offering up a broken heirloom to someone with steadier hands. The steel circled bone with a bright clack. She flinched at the cold and then found a stillness I recognized, the body accepting that the moment has passed it. I stepped down from the stage and walked to my mother. The stair treads gripped my soles. The rubber smelled faintly of tire and salt. My hand found her forearm. Linen cool under my fingertips, muscle quiet. She did not look away from the room, but her wrist turned under my palm, a small acknowledgement, a private salute. Jacob's lips parted. He didn't speak. He just exhaled, a long, frayed ribbon of air, and stood straighter than I'd seen him since he was 12 and trying to match my push-ups. Behind us, chairs whispered back into place as bodies settled from stand to sit, then rose again at the commander's signal. One more collective vertical, less ceremony than reset. The overhead lights eased from surgical to human. The projector cooled, its fan a soft, contented purr now. Travers approached with the sleeve. He slid it into the evidence crate, then paused, looked to me, and lifted a duplicate, my copy, from the folio. He tapped it once with his knuckle, a sound like a coin on a table, then handed it back. Anchor returned. The nurse released the brake. The chair rolled, bearings humming a low, neutral note. The guard's radio cracked to life. 2 words, a door number. They turned the corner and were gone, the IV bag swaying like a pale lantern. I climbed back to the stage for the final formalities. My shoes bit the tread. The metal settled against bone, heavy and right. The commander took the mic and didn't bother with microphones. He spoke at the room as if he knew we'd carry the words ourselves later, when the lights were off and the dishes were back in their cabinets. Vigilance is not paranoia, he said. 6 syllables, ironed flat. It's love doing math. He stepped away. Applause didn't come, not in claps. It came in the hush that followed, a held breath gratitude that didn't need noise. The color guard pivoted as one and filed out, boots drumming a clean, diminishing cadence. I slid the journal under my arm, pressed the metal once against my sternum, and felt the cool answer. The aisle opened. People moved aside without looking like they were moving aside. Their uniforms rustled, a fabric tied. At the threshold, the lobby's air hit cooler, tinged with floor wax and printer heat. Sun from the east windows fell in long, orderly bands across the tile like stripes on a ribbon. I stepped into one, and the warmth climbed my shins. From behind me, a single chair scraped as someone stood again and didn't sit. Major Haskins, fixed in place, cap at his side, eyes on the note I carried as if it were a compass he'd ignored too long. The hallway outside the auditorium felt too bright, like stepping from combat into a dentist's light. The sun bounced off every frame, every brass nameplate. Footsteps echoed in pairs. Travers is at my side, my mother's 2 beats behind. The sound of order, worn smooth by years of discipline. Behind us, the door swung shut with that heavy theater sigh, sealing the last of the applause that wasn't. A few officers lingered by the walls, murmuring into radios. Their eyes lowered. Respect, not avoidance. My mother's shoes made no sound on tile. Her hand brushed mine once, accident or maybe intention, but didn't stay. She walked straight toward the end of the corridor where sunlight pooled against the exit door, her spine a ruler of will. I followed. The folded note burned faintly through my pocket, the paper warm from my own pulse. Outside, the air hit softer. Wind moved through the flag ropes overhead, a dry, clicking rattle. The flag itself hung half-mast, then lifted. The sun cut through clouds in a slow, deliberate blade. For a moment, everything smelled like ironed cotton and jet fuel, a basin exhale. We walked without talking until the sound of traffic from the main gate joined us, distant and low like a sleeping engine. At the sidewalk's edge, my father waited. Jacket open, hands in pockets. His smile wasn't triumph, it was recognition. He nodded to my mother, to me. Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached out and took her hand, the gesture small, careful, as if touching an artifact. "Done?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. She watched the flag finish one long ripple, then said, "Done enough." He exhaled through his nose. "That'll do." Jacob came down the steps behind us, slower, phone in one hand, unread messages pooling like ghosts on the screen. His face was tight but calm now, the edges filed down. When he reached us, he didn't speak either. He just looked at Mom, then at me. Whatever blame he had left dissolved somewhere between breath and posture. Travers emerged last, paperwork in one hand, tie loosened at the neck. "Command debrief in 2 hours," he said, voice lower now. "You're clear until then." My mother nodded. "We'll be at quarters." He looked at her for a second longer than necessary. "Ma'am," she cut him off with a single raised eyebrow. He smiled without teeth, closed his file, and walked toward the motor pool, his shadow stretching long and thin across the asphalt. We walked home. No convoy, no salute. Just the quiet shuffle of a family learning how to share air again. The base houses lined the street in obedient rows. Lawns were clipped, hoses curled. Someone grilled bacon. The smell drifted sweet and defiant. The sound of a lawnmower from 2 blocks over buzzed faintly, steady and domestic, as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. At our front gate, I stopped. The porch light was still on. It shouldn't have been, the timer ended at dawn, but the bulb burned anyway, stubborn, yellow, same as last night. My mother saw it too. "Old wiring," she said. "Habit," I answered. We went inside. The kitchen was exactly as we'd left it, bleach tang fading to the neutral comfort of coffee and soap. The casserole dish was gone. In its place, a square of sunlight lay on the counter. The air felt hollow, scrubbed too clean. Jacob dropped his keys, slouched into a chair, and stared at the table as if expecting it to speak. Dad opened the window halfway, and the curtain breathed. The motion made the smell of cut grass drift in, mixing with the old marine polish of wood oil and lemon cleaner. Mom stood at the sink, hands braced on the edge, shoulders trembling just once, one visible crack in armor. Then she straightened, turned, and looked at me. "You did exactly what you should have," she said. "I followed orders," I replied. Her eyes softened. "You understood love." I wanted to answer, but the words tangled in my throat. The metal pressed against my chest again, metal reminding flesh what permanence feels like. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a sealed envelope. The original note, the one that had lived inside the evidence sleeve. She held it out. "Yours now, not as proof, as pattern." The paper was lighter than I remembered. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting looked smaller in daylight. "Pretend you're not well. Leave. Now." The porch light clicked as a gust of air hit the switch plate. For a moment, the bulb flared brighter, then dimmed, as if it too were exhaling. Jacob finally spoke. "So what happens to her?" Mom didn't answer right away. "She'll get treatment, supervision, maybe understanding." She picked up a cup, rinsed it, set it in the rack. Justice doesn't cancel pain. It balances it long enough for people to walk again. He nodded, eyes low. "And us?" "We walk," she said. I took the note to the den, opened my journal, and pasted it onto the inside cover with a strip of tape from the drawer. The paper's edge crinkled under my thumb. I wrote underneath it, "Duty protects the body, love protects the soul." The words came without effort now. They weren't philosophy. They were maintenance. Outside, a truck rumbled past, carrying crates of new supplies. The diesel tank curled into the room, sharp and alive. The base PA system crackled, then cleared its throat with static. All personnel, stand down. Regular operations resume. I looked out the window toward the flagpole. The fabric caught full wind, flattening into perfect form. No sag, no drag. My mother stepped onto the porch and saluted once, private and unsentimental. Then she reached up, turned the porch light off herself, and left her hand on the switch a second longer than needed. When she came back inside, she stopped beside me. Her voice was barely above the hum of the refrigerator. Instinct kept us alive, she said. Training taught it, I said. She shook her head. No, love did. Her hand rested on my shoulder, firm, neither comfort nor command. Then she walked toward her room, door closing soft as a flag folding. I wrote for a while longer. The house settled around me. Jacob's laughter, low and awkward, drifted from the living room where Dad must have cracked a joke to reset gravity. Cups clinked, a faucet hissed, silence came back, wearing peace instead of tension. I reached into the desk drawer, pulled the metal out again, and placed it atop the journal. Its surface reflected a slice of the window, a rectangle of moving light. I traced the edge with my finger, the way I used to trace my mother's jawline as a child when she fell asleep in uniform after long shifts. The metal was cold but not dead. Metal never is. It just waits for heat to remember it's part of something living. I closed the journal, set it under my arm, and stepped outside. The air smelled like cut grass and distant salt. The bass speakers played the afternoon bugle, clear and unhurried. I looked at the flag one last time, at its pulse in the wind, at the steadiness of its climb. I whispered to no one in particular. When instinct saves lives, love isn't loud. The wind carried it somewhere I couldn't see, and that was enough. If you know someone whose instinct protected you in silence, subscribe to Honorline for real military family courage, forgiveness, and love.